So today is the day that we're going to get a lot of our questions answered in the developer live stream at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's going to be roughly around 3 to 4 hours after this video drops. Now, we have gotten a lot of teasers on Twitter, on Reddit, and some speculation that I want to go through in this video, and potentially some things that I would like answered. Potential changes is not really something I'm looking for, to be honest. I don't really have too many issues with the game, and a lot of the critiques that I thought were reasonable have pretty much been addressed to some degree or another, whether they have potential to give us more information or they've already actually changed the actual criticism. So honestly, I'm pretty excited just to hear more about the game, and that's why this video is being made. Now, the official Diablo account tweeted out this post, as I said, at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time today. They're going to be going over a couple of things in terms of Diablo 4, Endgame details, and the changes since beta are the two highlighted topics, and they say, and more. Now, this is pretty awesome because Endgame details seem to be something that is largely, I guess you could say, misinterpreted or confused in terms of the community. A lot of people don't really know what the end game is like, or just have a misrepresentation of what it will be like, because a lot of people, for example, don't think that repeating dungeons is going to be sort of the end game in terms of acquiring kind of scalable nightmare sigils. By beating a nightmare dungeon, you get scalable sigils that can enter essentially a harder difficulty one, as far as we've seen so far. That is like the baseline. If you want to go as simplistic as possible, it's basically just running dungeons and dungeons over and over again to get more powerful bonuses, or rather, I guess you'd say, more difficult bonuses to give you better loot. I'm curious to hear what they have to say though about the open world and whether or not that's going to fit into the end game, whether or not world bosses and things like that are going to fit into the end game, and potentially, you know, maybe end game PvP. With, they said that PvP is going to be only cosmetics realistically, so I imagine it's not really going to fit in the end game, but potentially. And some of the changes since beta, whether or not they're going to make more changes. I imagine that they won't realistically make a ton of more changes, but who knows? I was way wrong about the speculation about they're not going to make any changes to the dungeon before the launch of the game. So since they've already done that, I'm going to say that it's possible. You know, I'll take it with a grain of salt. I don't think so, but I imagine that they will have potentially a few changes to, I guess you could say, introduce to us here that they've already made. But we'll see if they actually take any of our feedback and questions answered that Riker will address, and see if they change those as well. And of course, we have and more. Who knows what this could be? This could be all manner of different things for the game. Now, one thing that I want to mention is this post by Rod, as sort of a joke, but they mentioned that they have a secret announcement. So I want to take a second and potentially, I guess you could say, speculate a little bit about this. So the first thing that I think of when I think of secret announcement is a new class, to be honest. I think this has been speculated a lot in terms of the community. A lot of people are reading into the fine lines, especially those lore YouTubers like Dark Lord Dash. By the way, shout out to that guy if anyone watches him. I love that guy's storytelling. But some people mention like Witch Doctor class, Paladin class, etc. Definitely a lot of class speculation. I really highly think that is one of the most, I guess you could say, exciting things for potentially announcing. Like, they could announce, oh, here's another amazing endgame system. Oh, here's every change that you got addressed and more. I think that would be less exciting for the majority of people than just a new class introduced into the game. However, this is, I guess you could say, my hopeful speculation. If I was being realistic, the balancing around a whole nother class and all the abilities and all the legendary aspects is probably super unrealistic. And other people have been suggesting potentially another beta, as Carpo Gaming mentions here. That would be really interesting. I think that would be, I guess you could say, very doable. And I would say that's probably unlikely, because I think they just want to keep the hype up pretty high, and I think they have done that. They've actually done a masterful PR stroke, in my opinion. They launched the beta. People criticize the most basic things in the game because it's only level 25, and then they immediately fix a lot of those things. So now people are like, wait a second, they're listening, and the game was already pretty solid from a baseline standpoint. We don't know anything about the end game, So if they add another beta, I imagine it won't be a level 25 beta, and therefore they'll have to go ahead and fix a bunch more things, and the hype will die down. So I don't think that's probably a good PR move from their standpoint, so I don't think that personally would happen. I think probably the most likely thing to happen, you know, as I said, I really want a new class, but the most likely thing to happen is potentially some sort of system adjustment in the end game, or potentially how you could potentially move around the map. I think that's actually something interesting because a lot of people kind of don't like the open world. And on top of that, it does take a large amount of time to navigate the open world. And we do have mounts potentially, but I do think that, you know, adding additional avenues to kind of skirt around the map is something that could potentially be looked at, because one of the most fun things in open world games is the fact that you can move around and all the different ways to move around the map. When you're really slow, you're playing something like a druid or a bard potentially, and you don't have, you know, leaps, dashes on your skill bar, it is a really brutal experience to move around. Even something like sorcerer, you know, it can be a lot. Now, really quickly, this comment here, someone mentioned endless dungeons. I actually do think this is also a really interesting idea and could potentially be really realistic in terms of what we can expect from the secret announcement. Now, they did mention this, as I remember, as they say here in the comment before, but they didn't really give any, I guess you could say, context around it, as they say. So I'm not quite sure what this would mean, but I imagine it's something similar to just killing a ton of monsters in a dungeon. So we'll see if that's going to be the secret announcement. Now, a couple final things. I do want to mention that Blizzard is really trying here, specifically Pez Radar. He's always reached out to the community in sort of, I guess you say, niche ways in sort of the gamers hubs and the toxicity hubs, specifically on Reddit. Okay, so there's this post about the Endgame stream being roughly 90 minutes. He made that post, and what ended up happening is someone commented that would mean about 5 minutes of useful information. And to be fair, I do tend to agree with this sentiment. Usually about 90 minutes tends to be a very small amount of useful information. They end up just chatting about the game, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, right? I'm hyped about the game. That's what I do. I just chat about the game. So it'd be hypocritical for me to say that's a bad thing to do. I don't think at all. It's a really cool thing. So I'm going to be watching it regardless. But Pez Radar responded to say, always happy to hear feedback on what we can do better on the streams. We heard some pretty positive comments regarding the last stream and the info we shared. I know the first one was a bit rough, but we attempted to address them with the one in February, and we'll continue to make them better in the future. For those of you that watched those streams, it was a little rough the first time, but they have made some really nice improvements in February. The first one was and did seem a little bit more of like a I'm going to use the term chill stream, but that's a harsh term. It's just that they were sponsored and I guess you could say contracted to do a lot of things, which is, again, that's how they kind of I guess you could say fund some of their revenue, it seems like. But so I don't blame them too much. But the last stream was actually pretty good. I'm excited for this one, especially the fact that they're bringing on content creators. And on that note, I want to end on this. Someone mentioned, oh, not Riker, he's a casual. Why not have some critics like Quinrex, Mr. Llama, SC, or Zizaren? I bet Riker's just going to agree with everything y'all say. Like, yeah, I don't see any flaws and can't wait to play on release. I think the game's perfect. I don't know. I just hard disagree with this sentiment. I think people like Mr. Llama, SC, Zizaren, and Quinrex, they're all like very prominent figures, and I agree. They are people that I do think have valid criticisms and would be good to feature. However, I actually think that Riker is arguably one of the most perfect people to bring on. First off, he generates a lot of hype for Diablo 4, and you always want a positive person in the community to kind of, I guess you could say, generate more hype about the game. So whether or not you agree with that, I think that's generally just the best move forward for the community. At the same time, I think that Quinn is a little bit more of a memer, and although he does actually have some really nice serious videos, and I do think his criticism is really nice in terms of how thoughtful it is, I don't know. I just think that a lot of these people are going in with the mindset that D4 is an inferior game to the games that they're already playing. Mr. Llama D2 and Zizaren PoE, and I think that lends itself to, I guess you say, a more negative connotation towards the stream. Don't get me wrong, Riker's definitely going in with a bias that Diablo is great. So you could say that for sure. And that Diablo 4 is going to be better as a bias. I don't know. I just prefer myself to see someone who is vouching for Diablo in its entirety to go on the stream and ask questions, because I feel like we'll get some real meaningful questions asked and some actual positive feedback, and I prefer that over potentially some sort of negative discussion. I don't know, that's what I view at least. Don't get me wrong, I want to see Mr. Llama and I want to see Zizzer and I want to see Quinn on there as well. I think it'd all be super fun, super engaging, but I definitely prefer Riker as the first one up, so I'm excited about that. So that's gonna wrap it up, guys. Let me know what you guys think about the guest. Let me know what you think about what we're gonna see in terms of secret announcement, and let me know if you're hyped about the Endgame stream. I know I am. That's kind of why I make videos about this, right? But that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.